Hello everybody, Sparkster1701 here. And this time around we're taking a look at what is quite possibly, at the time of this recording, one of the most elusive sets to find for the Earthrise series. We're talking about the Seeker 2-pack of Thundercracker and Skywarp. It seems this time around for the Seekers, they're getting a little funky with them. Starscream appears to be the only one that will be available at general retail, which means he'll be available at any retail store that sells toys. Thundercracker and Skywarp here will be exclusive to Target stores, and more than likely as well Target.com. Ramjet and Dirge will be available as an Amazon exclusive. And Thrust is confirmed to also be an exclusive, but we don't, at the time of this recording, we don't have details on where he will be an exclusive at. I'm kind of mixed about that, folks. I mean, the Seekers are popular characters, no doubt, especially from the G1 days, but I don't think they really deserve all this much extra attention or exclusivity. Just makes it harder to get the ones that many of us might really want. Especially when these guys here, they were available in the Siege line. Although in the Siege line, Thundercracker was also a general retail release, and Skywarp was an exclusive to Amazon. This set in particular was given to me by subscriber Zanette, also one of my biggest fans, for more reasons than I care to share on YouTube at the moment. But she apparently had a story with these that I'm going to share with all of you. Her original intent was to send me the Earthrise version of RC, and that is supposedly what she bought and paid for. But the idiot seller sent her this 2-pack and claimed that the two jets combined together to form RC. And despite her protests that that is not correct, the dealer said she does not know what she is talking about. So to any of you out there that are eBay sellers, or any other online seller, if you can't read the box and understand what you're selling, then you aren't smart enough to be selling these toys. There's my channel, there's Transformer Land, there's 2 different Transformer Wikiyas out there, and heaven only knows how many other websites are available that talk about Transformers. If you can't take the time to properly identify one, you don't have any business selling them. Especially when she paid $25 to get RC, and she got these guys here that retail for about $50 to $60. Okay, we've had our rant about that now. Let's get on with the review. Alright, these guys are, of course, based on their original 1984 releases, and we will compare them to them. For those of you who may be wondering, yes, Thundercracker here is basically a repaint of Starscream. The easiest way to know that is the fact that their heads are pretty much the same. They have the same face sculpt. It's a little hard to see it on the camera, but they both have the same stern look on their face. While Skywarp here, if we can shine the spotlight on him, Skywarp here has a more open mouth gesture on him. Boy, that collapsible lantern comes in handy at times. So as such, they are basically exactly the same to Starscream in terms of how their accessories are shaped and how they will transform. But they also have the same articulation, which we will take a look at now. We'll use Thundercracker here to do that. You can turn his head from side to side, and his head does rock up and down a bit. His arm can be raised out about so far, and if you shift the wings a bit, the arm can rotate all the way around at the shoulder. You just have to shift the wing out of the way. His arm does bend at the elbow about 90 degrees, and he does have a swivel at the bicep. He does not have the ability to twist at his hips, but he can spread his legs apart about so far. You can raise his legs up just under 90 degrees, and you can bend him at the knee 90 degrees. So, the Seekers do have a fair amount of articulation. Now, of course, if you buy these guys loose, this is the accessory you'd have to look for each of them. They each have 2 of these guns that mount on their shoulders. Now, of course, as you would say, for those of you who saw my Starscream video, you would know Starscreams are gray. So if you're looking for some for Thundercracker, they are blue. And if you're looking for Skywarp, they are purple. Now we'll take an individual look at the 2 of them next to their G1 counterparts. I figured we'd start off here by showing them Skywarp next to each other. As you can see, the modern Skywarp is somewhat taller than the original Skywarp. And of course, going by articulation, he definitely has more than his G1 counterpart, as famously the Generation 1 version could only move his arms at the shoulder, and that was it. Of course, in the G1 continuity, Skywarp was one of Starscream's minions. He did have a special ability that allowed him to teleport. So while that made him somewhat more useful as a warrior, it was seriously hampered by the fact that Skywarp was famously rather stupid, and seemed to be more interested in being a practical joker than a Decepticon warrior. As his tech spec card does famously say that Skywarp would be totally useless if not for Megatron's direction. And some of that probably comes in the form of Megatron pointing his fusion cannon at Skywarp's face to make him go do what he needed to do. The toy does appear to be more based closer to the animation model than the Generation 1 toy. But that's okay. That does work out. Some of us might have preferred it a little bit. Especially since on the cartoon, their wings were always a lot more closer to their shoulders than what the original toy allowed. But also, more famously, there's only 2 loose pieces to this toy, unlike the several that was with the original. Alright, we're going to transform Skywarp here in just a second. First, let's get the original one changed and out of our way. Okay, we're going to transform Skywarp here, and I'm only going to show Skywarp's transformation because he and Thundercracker are exactly the same, so we're not going to waste time doing both of them. I'm sorry, folks, but you'll get to see the side-by-side comparisons in a moment. The first thing you got to do is remove the guns from Skywarp. And then next, we bring his arms straight forward, just exactly like that. Now the next thing we need to do is on the sides of his arms, we need to rotate up this portion right here on his wrists. Rotate that portion up just exactly like that. And then we come back here to the front and we will fold his fists up so that they touch it. Now, down here, you're going to dislodge the purple portion and slide it backward, like so. And then you will fold the entire arm covering and the fist back over, just like that. Demonstrate it here again on the other arm. It may take a little wrangling, but you'll eventually get it in. Like I said, it kind of helps go up like that and then slide under. Then fold down the forearm and then fold down the hand. Just like that. Exactly like that. Very simple. And then after you've done that, you bring his arms down to his sides. You're going to reach behind him next, bring up the nose cone, and fold it over his head and snap it into place. And then next we're going to disconnect the shoulders from the chest. This may take a little effort, especially if the toy is reasonably new like these guys are. You disconnect it and fold it backwards like that. And you're going to take the nose of the plane, raise it up like that, and then rotate it 180 degrees and then fold it backwards and snap it into place. Just exactly like that. Then next we take the shoulders and we're going to fold them inward. Fold them in just like that. Once you've done that, then we fold the plane back up and snap the shoulders into place, back on the chest. Just like that, so he looks like a standing X-29 airplane. And next, we fold up the hip shield. We come down here to his feet. I'm going to fold the feet together, like so. Then you will rotate the big tail fin up. The tail fins, you probably won't be able to see it very well on the camera, but there's a little post here on the side, and it'll connect to a hole specifically grooved along the side of the leg. Just exactly like that. You'll hear it snap into place. And then the side wings, you just fold out to the side just like that. Then you're going to snap the legs together. You reach down here at the knees and you're going to fold out the front cavity just like that. And then we're going to shift them inwards to fold his legs in and snap it against the fuselage. Once you've got it in like that, you'll fold down. Once they're in correctly all the way, you should have no trouble folding in the leg cover. And of course, once that's in, you can fold down the hip shield to secure them in place. Then you'll grab the wings, you're going to rotate them back. Make sure this section here lays flat against the fuselage. And just adjust them a bit so they fit snugly along the side. Now, the wings do detach apart, but they just slide back in just like that. So do be careful of that. Don't quite have the body in. There we go. So we can snap the wings into place. And then lastly, underneath, there's a hole in the wing. That's perfect for mounting the guns. And there we have Skywarp in his alternate mode. He's a stylized version of an F-15, which is reminiscent of his Generation 1 form. Where they both became F-15s. This one kind of takes some design liberties with it. All in all, it's not bad. If I had any real gripes about how the new one looks, it would be with the Decepticon insignias here on the wing. They're a little too small. They're a little too small for my liking. I kind of liked the big ones that we had on the Generation 1 version. I mean, I guess this makes Skywarp a little better in disguise since it's harder to see them, but I kind of like the bigger ones myself. But that's just a personal opinion. Otherwise, it's not a bad toy. As you saw in my Starscream video, the plane mode does swoosh pretty good, so you can imagine that children of today, or even those of us that are young at heart, would have a lot of fun swooping them down over a squad of Autobots. Alright, let's take a look at Thundercracker now. And here we have Thundercracker. And again, like I said earlier, I think he's more inspired by his Generation 1 cartoon appearance than the toy, since he is in a lighter blue color than what the Generation 1 version is. But all in all, it's still a nice representation of Thundercracker. Of course, a brief history of Thundercracker. The toy was one of the first to be released in the Transformer line back in '84. He would be discontinued in '86, and he would become a mail-away exclusive here in the United States. I say that due to the fact that I have one of the flyers that he was prominently featured in from the States, but I also have its Japanese counterpart, and the Japanese counterpart replaced him with Dirge as a mail-away, so rather interesting bit of trivia there, especially if you haven't seen my video on the G1 Thundercracker. I do recommend you check it out, because that's where that flyer is prominently seen. But at any rate, Thundercracker as a character was one of them that wasn't totally into the Decepticon cause. He was basically a loner on Cybertron that had no real purpose in his life, and so he was easily swayed to join the Decepticons upon hearing some of Megatron's speeches. However, as he's borne witness to many of the atrocities that the Decepticons have caused, he has begun to question his loyalty to the Decepticons. Of course, he knows better than to say it out in the open, as Megatron or even Starscream would more than likely kill him if they were aware of his feelings. However, there's a slight bit of irony in that, During the events of Transformers the movie, Thundercracker would be severely injured in battle and would be cast out into space to die. He would be one of them encountered by Unicron, and Thundercracker would be reformatted into the fanatical Decepticon known as Scourge. So he goes from being a drifter to being reformatted into a fanatic. Alright then, now I'm going to shift these guys over into their plane modes so that we can take a look at those similarities. And there we have it, folks. Thundercracker in both the G1 and Earthrise alternate modes. And again, the Decepticon symbol is very, very small on Thundercracker's wing. Almost in certain lights, it disappears. So again, I really wish it would have been bigger. Plus, there's also no color detail here on the tail fin, which, as you can see there on the Generation 1, there was a nice little sticker here on the tail fins that did add a nice little splash of color back there. So I do miss the fact that they don't have that on this one. But all in all, it is a nice representation of Thundercracker. I mean, yeah, of course, the nose isn't painted either, but that's kind of one of those 6 of one, half a dozen of the other on it. I mean, on the original, the nose was made of rubber, which is kind of why they were all black, whereas this is just a solid piece of plastic. So, it's not likely a detail that's going to be missed by a lot of people, but I guess that just boils down to personal preference. So now we get down to my thoughts. What do I think of Thundercracker and Skywarp? Well, I am kind of glad that they are back and we get to see them in their Earthrise forms. So it's kind of, if you want to do a nice evolution of the characters from between their Cybertronian jets to their Earth jets modes, then this makes for a nice addition into the toy line, as you do have a way to compare them side by side with each other and appreciate them like that. If I have any real problems with them, and there are some, the biggest, like I said, is the small size of the Decepticon insignia. I mean, I know they're not making it as prominent, so I guess it makes them hide better here on Earth. But I think it still would be nice to make it a little bit bigger so it's more noticeable, more prominent on the toy itself. On Thundercracker especially, I do miss the fact that the tail fins do not have their stickers on them. It gave a nice splash of color on the rather plain black fins back there. With Skywarp's being all purple, it's not too bad, especially since he's predominantly black in color. It's nice to have the purple there as a splash of color on it, whereas Thundercracker's just kind of looks plain. But again, that's just my opinion. If I had a real major gripe about these guys, it's them being exclusive figures. And I know the exclusiveness is meant to get us out and go spend our money at other places, but I'll tell you the truth, folks, some of it is more of a pain in the posterior than what it's worth in the long run. I mean, it's like the Seekers are getting a lot of exclusives, and it's kind of, I'd like to see some other characters become exclusive toys instead of the Seekers. Especially when back during the Siege run, Target got a lot of the Seekers as exclusives. They had the Rainmakers 3-pack as an exclusive, and if you had one of their Target cards, you also had access on their website to get another exclusive Seeker in the form of Red Wings. So they kind of got a little overindulged with those Seekers. The one nice thing about it this time around is the fact that they're not going to be exactly the same. Amazon gets a couple of them that have some funky wings in the form of Dirge and Ramjet, so while they'll basically be a repaint of each other, in a sense, it at least shows some variation to it instead of it being exactly the same. Hopefully, when I can get my hands on the actual product, we'll see if it lives up to the hype that it may have. At any rate, that's my review of the Earthrise versions of Skywarp and Thundercracker. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you liked the video, drop me a thumbs up here on YouTube. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button and join our ranks. Make sure you ring the bell so you'll get notified when I post new content this month. Also, please consider sharing this video with your friends and fellow collectors. That's what helps this channel grow. And share your thoughts about Skywarp and Thundercracker in the comments down below. This is Sparkster1701 saying I will catch you all later.